Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this CBS webinar on how to attract and retain top talent in 2022. I'll start by welcoming our panel of guests and experts. We have Sarah Cooney, Head of People and Development at RRG Group. Give us a quick wave, Sarah. We have Anita Holden, Group Payroll and Pensions Manager at Rybrook. And Kim Gilfillan, Group HR Manager at Eastern Western. And finally, our very own Nikki Dickinson, Head of People, Culture and Values here at Car Benefit Solutions. Just to give you an overview, this session will last 45 minutes to an hour. Questions can be posted in the chat function throughout the event, and they can be voted on as we work through all of the questions that we're going to pose to the panel today. Those that are the most voted will rise to the top of the list, and we'll address these questions as priority at the end of the session across the entire panel. This webinar will also be recorded and the link will be accessible after the event. So thank you everyone for joining us, and we'll start with the first scenario, which is the ongoing business challenges that have been posed by the Great Resignation. I think it's fair to say that 2021 was more volatile than expected. The rise of the new COVID variants taking us in and out of lockdown and a bit of uncertainty about what the future might hold. And what's being widely debated as a war for talent, with quit rates at an all-time high and highest inflation levels in a generation. So we've seen, obviously, people have maybe lost staff, some people have maybe recruited staff, and we've had business restructures both on the back of COVID and people just having a general revamp of their businesses. So I'll start by taking the first question to you, Sarah, if that's okay. What have you experienced at your business by way of the Great Resignation? What impact has this had on you?
Yes, very challenging. Thank you for that question. Just in relation to any levers that we may have, I think it's all about communication. So from my point of view and my team, we always make sure we try to get into the detail of why people are leaving. And we have actually found that communication is key in that regard, because it uncovers so many different aspects of why somebody's leaving. And what we're finding is the more productive roles we have, technicians, painters, panel beaters, sometimes it's mainly for the money, but sometimes it's all about where they've not received a message about something, or they're kind of not feeling as though they're part of the team. So I think communication is key with regards to the challenges that we're currently facing. And I think it's all about talking to your manager direct on a regular basis, so one-to-ones, things like that, really.
Thanks, Sarah. What about you, Anita? Is that similar for you?
Yeah, I think it's similar for us. I think culture is one of the biggest things for people to leave. It seems like the pandemic has showed individuals what they want out of work-life balance, and I think the changing cultures is what is stemming the resignation of lots of people.
Thank you. And is that the same for you as well, Kim? Sorry, Kim, I'm struggling to hear you there. If you can just unmute your microphone, would that be okay?
That better? Apologies. Yeah, I think for us, you know, when the pandemic first hit and we started furlough and all of these types of things, communication in the business was probably exemplary at that point. And I think if you went back to all the staff and said what was one of the key benefits when we went into lockdown, was the fact that we communicated exceptionally well. And I think that coming out of the pandemic and us all going back to the new norm, that we've probably maybe lost sight of the fact that we need to, the expectations around about communication and how you engage with staff are very different to what they were pre-pandemic. So from that perspective, you know, going back to what one of the colleagues said earlier, is absolutely communication, and how you communicate with your staff on a day-to-day basis is absolutely key for us.
Nikki, we found very similar for ourselves, didn't we, at CBS, in terms of making sure that we kept that communication strong, particularly for those that might feel isolated as well?
Absolutely.
We did in all areas, not just in terms of recruitment, but pre-pandemic, through the pandemic, and even now that we're working on a hybrid basis, it's ever more important that we're open and we're transparent, and that people have a variety of different ways to communicate, whether that's through surveys, through open door meetings, through just general one-to-ones and forums across the business. It's been really helpful to identify what people see as their own personal challenges and challenges back in the workplace. So communication is always key. It's always the one thing that we always really strive to get right, I'm sure, as HR professionals across the spectrum.
One of the questions that I'm intrigued to know is that of the levers that you've had across your business, and I'll direct this question at you, Anita, in the first instance, how many of those levers have actually remained in the automotive sector, or how many have turned the back on the profession altogether?
I think a lot of them have remained in the automotive business. I think it is definitely about communication, but I think it's moving on to, I mean, with the cost of living crisis as well. I think we're having a lot of people move for that extra money. So I mean, we've got that issue as well now that has sort of compounded everything else. But I think a lot of them are staying in the automotive business.
Thank you. And is that the same for you, Sarah?
Yes, absolutely. And we were fortunate to be able to do a full pay exercise across the whole of the group in April, just to kind of realign basic salaries and benefits and kind of commission structures and things like that. We will be going one step further, slightly further down the line, in terms of making sure that we're standardising other areas as well, such as holidays and things like that, which we have in the main, but we're making a few tweaks to things. But yeah, pretty much the same as Anita, really, across our group. Remained in those in the motor industry in those roles.
It's interesting, isn't it, that I think some of the things we've done as a consequence of the pandemic, the byproduct has been quite positive in a lot of respects, hasn't it? Kim, has that been your experience as well?
Absolutely. Pre-pandemic, I think as HR professionals, you sometimes would find it quite difficult to get initiatives off the ground. But I think certainly I found from our business coming back into the office environment and tabling things at board level that the board are much more receptive to some of the initiatives from a people perspective that we're putting forward now, i.e. additional holidays. You know, we do have your birthday off in us now. We do additional length of service holidays and stuff like that. And previously, we probably tabled these prior to the pandemic and not necessarily being successful. But certainly from an HR professional basis, I found it a lot easier to get things by the operational board. I don't know if everyone else agrees with that.
That's interesting.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, you're nodding there, Anita. Is that your experience as well?
Yeah, I think coming out of the pandemic, I think the board have realised that we need to do a lot to retain our talent. We need to do more for them, and I think it's been a lot easier to take the suggestions that would have usually been shelved and sort of put on the back burner are definitely on the table and are being accepted by board.
That's really interesting, because certainly we've done a lot at CBS, and Nikki, you can vouch for this, around our employee wellbeing and initiatives to make sure that we support and are giving everybody the chance to work in a way that suits them as well. Do you want to just give us an overview of some of the things we've done at CBS?
Yeah, I think we were really fortunate in that the business has been really supportive of what we wanted to do from a wellbeing perspective anyway. But what the pandemic did was pose different challenges. As you know, we may have done yoga in the office. How do you do that virtually? So we managed to still keep a lot of the wellbeing initiatives that we do, but we do it in a virtual way, or we'd switch it around to make sure that everybody's still involved. And something that we've taken that into a post-pandemic world is that, you know, whereas previously field-based teams would say, well, we can't access that. Now we make sure that everything is accessed virtually or face-to-face. So that's been a really positive learning lesson for us. And we also did a wellbeing survey to find out what people wanted of their work-life balance, of the wellbeing provision across all different areas of psychological, social and financial wellbeing, and to just make sure that we listened and gave them what supported them. And to that effect, we've been really fortunate. We've just received a We Invest in Wellbeing Silver Award, and that's been a long time coming because we spent the last 4 years listening and identifying what benefits our people. You've got your EAPs and your Bupa and your Medicash, but actually what supports them in this new hybrid world of working from home. Some people can get quite lonely. Some people are nervous to come back into the office. So it's managing that really. And I think there's been lots of really positive learning lessons. And for ourselves as HR professionals, there's lots out there about HR professionals not practicing what they preach and doing the well-being for themselves. And that's important that we do that as well. It's not just about the team around us.
Thanks, Nikki. That brings us nicely on to the next kind of subject matter that we've got to discuss around the table, and that's the trials of an evolving workforce and changing employee preferences. I think it's now becoming very apparent, and just before we went live, we were having a discussion about recruitment at the moment, but it's become very apparent that actually hybrid working is becoming more of an expectation and certainly more of a wish. It's now second ranking around importance to salary. So that tells us how important it is. So I'll start with you, Kim. What's been your experience in terms of your employees and their wish for a hybrid working environment?
I think we've had a real mixed bag, to be honest, and I think we forget that some staff actually don't want to be in the office to start, don't want to be in the house to start off with. So from that perspective, I think as an HR team, we sometimes forgot about those individuals that we thought we'd want to be in the house as opposed to be working in the office. So for us, it's really about culture, camaraderie and collaboration. So it's going back to some of the things that were muted earlier, making sure that people have access to information, making sure that you have the appropriate IT systems in place, that you have regular catch-ups with staff. We use lots of video engagement now that we would never have done pre-pandemic, etc., where the heads of business now, to make sure that the same message is delivered to everybody at the same time, etc., have started using video platforms or whatever. We probably in the past 6 to 12 months have had more flexible working requests probably than we have in the previous 6 years, to be honest. So I think people have evaluated the way that they want to work, etc. Most of our employees, we're quite fortunate, we're in the position that most of our employees will live within a half-hour travelling distance to work, etc. So I don't think it's probably the travelling time that's pushing these requests. It's the fact that people have had the opportunity to maybe drop the kids off at school, have breakfast with their family, even manage to catch the evening meal with their family, and work their life round about other things that they have going on as well. So from that perspective, yes, there's some roles categorically in the automotive industry that can't be done hybrid, and I don't know if anybody else has had that experience of that, but certainly from an admin, some of our front-facing roles or whatever, we've been able to accommodate the majority of requests that we've had, which is really, really positive.
That is positive. Is that, Sarah, you were nodding along then when Kim was speaking. Is that the same for your group?
Yes, certainly echo what's been said, really. Obviously with dealerships, so predominantly dealership based, customer facing, productive employees, but certainly people coming back from maternity leave or parental leave requesting flexible working, which I think is fantastic. So the hybrid kind of piece really is only relevant to head office type positions where they're not customer facing, but they can kind of work from home part of the week and then back in the office. But again, it's all individual, isn't it? It's always based on whether you manage a team, whether you work independently. So we've had some challenges in that respect, but certainly a real increase over the last couple of years. Even things like part-time technician roles being created, which I think is brilliant, because fantastic. Literally within the motor industry, kind of prior to the pandemic, kind of a bit one-dimensional in terms of, oh no, we need a full-time technician. Well, why? We can have 2 part-time technicians, or we can have a technician that wants to choose their hours. So I feel that we've come out of it with some real good success stories where we've been able to accommodate requests where we ordinarily probably wouldn't even have looked at prior, which is wrong. So yeah, no, I'm really pleased about that. So yeah, that was one that I had on my list.
Thanks, Sarah. Anita, have you had any experience of people maybe not feeling that it's fair if they're customer facing and they can't do the hybrid working, or has it all been that those people in those roles naturally want to be, you know, that they want to be customer facing, they want to be at the front line?
I think the people out in the dealerships, they are customer facing, and they do want to be out there. And I think you've got a lot of people that sort of echoing the others that want to come into work. And I think within the dealerships, we've got a lot of people that want to come into work. We have got some hybrid working, sort of mainly in head office, but I think from a dealership base, I think they like the buzz of the dealership, and I think they like to be in the middle of it. Even sort of the back office staff within the dealerships, they like to be in the middle of it. So I think a lot of people are coming back to work, but we have had some rumblings about sort of people wanting to do it that can't, but then I think they also accept that they understand their roles, they can't. So do you know what I mean? It's difficult to work from home when you are customer facing. So I think individuals that are customer facing understand why they can't, but then I think people that can within the dealerships like to go in because it is about the buzz of the dealership quite a lot of the time that they like, and they want to be involved with it.
Yeah, I think that's been the same from our side, hasn't it, Nick?
It has, and I think once people were sent home to work because of COVID, it was like, oh, I don't really think I'm going to like this. And then they got used to working from home, they got used to the flexibility, you know, like you say, Kim, being at home for tea time and doing all of the things that they may miss out on. And so then once they'd got used to it and we started bringing people back into the office on a hybrid basis, there was a bit of pushback, but then actually, but for us, it's about seeing the people, and one of my phrases is feasting your eyes on people, and you don't always get that virtually. So for us, the hybrid method of working gives us the best of both worlds. And when people started to come back into the office, it was that sense of belonging and actually, this is what I've missed out on. And even learning from people, that you hear people talking and dealing with a situation in a certain way, you don't get that when you're permanently virtual. So for us, it's been a real positive that people have actually really enjoyed coming back into the office, re-establishing relationships. We recruited quite a bit, backfilling roles during the COVID period. So some of these people had never even worked in our offices. So it works really well, actually. Different roles have different patterns. So I think people generally have really adapted well to the hybrid working, and for work-life balance, and for us as a business, it's been a really positive move. And some of these roles we would never have thought would have worked on a hybrid basis previously.
An interesting question that's just been posted is asking, how have the panel found the hybrid flexible working requests, as well as balancing the needs of the customer and the motor trade industry? I think motor trade industry's got a bit of a reputation in terms of it being quite a demanding profession to be part of. So I'll start with you, Kim. Has there been any negative or positive impact on the customer that's been brought about by hybrid working?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I think, yeah, let's go back. You know, there's a couple of things that we've done. We've managed to actually, if it's going to sound tech, we've actually managed to open our workshops for longer periods of time by, you know, looking at the ways that we work. And the customer collaboration has probably been improved because we're giving people more time off to go and recharge the batteries. I'll give you a couple of examples of that. So our technicians, some of them now work a condensed working week, so they only work 4 days a week. So that gives us the opportunity to open the workshops for longer periods of time. And from a sales executive perspective, what we've also done is we've reduced the number of weekends that they increased the number of weekends that they have off. So instead of having a 1 in 3 or sometimes a 1 in 4, we've moved to a 1 in 2 weekends off. So I think people are getting the opportunity to recharge the batteries much more frequently as well. So from that perspective, that must have a positive impact on the customer experience, because, you know, they spend more time at home, they're more engaged when they come back into work, etc. They're not as tired, you know, and they appreciate the time away from the business as well.
That's a really valid point, actually. And Anita, has that been the same for you? Have you extended any of your kind of operational hours by having this more flexible approach to working?
Not particularly. We are looking at a sort of different things like condensed working weeks and 4 days, and we are in the process of we're very early in the journey looking at it. So it's good to sort of hear what Kim's been doing and how successful it's been. But I think we're probably further back in the journey than there. We are looking at different ways, and I think burnout sort of it is a big thing for us. And I think in order to retain a lot of our top talent, is burnout's definitely something that we need to look at and approach with sort of quite sort of focus, because I think that burnout is a big reason why people are leaving, especially the top talents. Burnout is a massive thing.
Yeah, and is that the same for you, Sarah?
I think within RRG, in terms of, it's making sure the balance is right. So it's making sure we have enough staff in the first place. So I think we are definitely further back in terms of making sure we've got more people in the teams to be able to then decide whether or not a shorter working week or a different working pattern will suit. I think across our group anyway, we do have quite a good balance with the weekends off and a couple of late nights as opposed to 4 or 5 late nights and things like that. So I think we do have quite a happy balance, but it is challenging to recruit in the teams in the first instance before then we can start to properly and seriously look at that working pattern, really.
Yeah, and the customer will definitely benefit from that in the long run, won't they, in terms of being able to access a service for a longer period of time, albeit a different structure that it's being delivered under. But one of the questions that's just popped up on the panel as well is, has offering hybrid working made staff generally more loyal and assisted in reducing leavers? Nikki, what would your view on that be?
Yeah, I think it's a contributory factor. I think it depends on the individual. Some people have made a decision that they don't actually want to do the role that they're doing now. Some people did a bit side hustle, didn't they, in the pandemic? So they may have pursued that. But I think for us as a business, primarily, I think hybrid working has been a really positive thing and has had a positive outcome. But I don't think it's that in isolation. I think it's that combined with the culture, the rewards and benefits package, which I know obviously we'll discuss later, the L&D, the support that they get throughout the business to enable them to do their job, the tech to be able to work hybrid. Yes, I think it's helped, but I don't think it's that in isolation. When we recruit for roles, we have some people that absolutely don't want to work from home at all, some people that only want to work from home, and people that want to work hybrid, and that's across all roles. So it's not certain roles, it's across the piece. So I think it's an individual basis, but it does definitely help. I think we have to be forward thinking, we have to move with the times, we have to be competitive in the market, and if we don't offer it, I think it's very short-sighted.
Yeah, and I think those are all valid points, and the flexibility is absolutely the way that we need to. And it was interesting at the start of this session, Kim, were you saying that you've got the ear of the operational board much more than maybe historically, because actually people are more open to suggestions and ideas around how we can move forwards. Which brings us quite nicely onto the next section, which is around ways to attract top talent by developing an attractive and competitive benefits package to make sure you're standing out from companies within the industry and from outside of the industry, because, you know, we know that we've got leavers from the automotive sector, but we're also attracting from other industries that you know, fresh ideas and fresh faces. We know that salary and benefits remain the key motivators in recruiting and retaining the right workforce. But being able to demonstrate, and I've read this many times over, prioritising people over profits, I think is the softer side that's now coming into the automotive sector that maybe previously wasn't very apparent to us. But what shift have you seen in terms of your changes and experiences in awareness around employee well-being? And I'll start by asking you that, Sarah, because we had a nice chat yesterday about some of the well-being initiatives that you've done at RRG. So if you wouldn't mind sharing that with the panel.
Yeah, absolutely. We introduced something called Wellbeing Wednesdays, which was just before the pandemic, and it kind of started off as myself and our L&D coordinator talking about it. So then we decided actually we're going to go for this. We're just going to do Wellbeing Wednesdays every Wednesday, and across our group, my colleague actually visits the centres, you know, when they request. But it's become the norm. It's definitely become the norm now. It's every Tuesday she'll send an email around to all staff to say, I'm going to be at such a place tomorrow. Please pop in and see me, even if you just send an email, telephone call, calling for a chat. But it's working so well that they're receiving somebody from HR on a Wednesday at their dealerships, and we're taking the time out to listen and want to understand people's well-being and how they're feeling. And it is, you know, it is the softer side, but also people come in under the guise of asking a question. You know, literally it could be about anything. Or when's pay date this month? Or, you know, how many holidays have I accrued? I only started on such a date. So it just generates communication. And I think it just sends a good feel factor around the business and a message that we care. We care about our employees. But I know somebody mentioned it before about an award for wellness. I'm not sure whether or not that was Nikki.
That was Nikki, yeah.
Was that Nikki? Yeah. So yeah, I would be interested to know about that actually, Nikki, later on, if that's okay. If you could send me some information on that, because I think the stuff that we do, and it's like with the mental health as well, we actually train up our mental health for first aiders and champions around the group. So again, you know, we've got people on hand ready to observe and check in on people, which ordinarily wouldn't have done that prior to the pandemic, I don't think, really. But it all forms part of it. So now I would be interested in hearing about that.
And Kim, you were nodding along there. Is that something that you're experiencing at East and Western as well?
Absolutely. We did the mental health wellbeing training with all the line managers, so that they would be comfortable having those conversations. You know, these managers are closer to the staff than anybody. You know, and I know certainly with my own team, if I walk in on a Monday morning and I'm like, something's slightly off here, you know, because I'm so close to the team that, you know, to go and pick it up with that individual, and they're very comfortable, you know, talking about mental health, well-being, just general, you know, as you say, communicating, asking how things are going on the guise of, you know, you're interested, and you should be interested at the end of the day. So having actually prioritised that from a management perspective, so that managers are now comfortable with having those difficult conversations. I think pre-pandemic, they would have picked up the phone to HR and said, I don't think that Jimmy's, you know, feeling quite right, or there's something off, you know, and you're kind of smiling there at that. What do you think I should do? And I'm not suggesting for one moment that we don't still get those conversations, but I think managers are much more comfortable having those conversations. And I think anyone that's sitting here today, one way or the other, will have had periods during the pandemic where they've struggled with their own mental health. So I think we're all much more aware of what's going on round about us and how staff may be feeling. So it's much easier to have those types of conversations just now. I think pre-pandemic, mental health and well-being, certainly in the automotive industry, was kind of buzzwords that we would have loved to have put more focus on. But now it kind of is part of our heartbeat, it's part of our DNA now that we're quite comfortable having these conversations. I don't know if everybody agrees with that or not.
It's a really positive byproduct again, isn't it, Kim? And Anita, have you experienced the same thing? And are you asked even at recruitment stage what the kind of wellbeing policy is for Rybrook Group?
I think Kim's correct in what she's saying. I think everybody's much more aware of their mental health now, and I think it's coming through all environments, and automotive is definitely there. I think people are asking more about their well-being. I think they are more interested, although, I mean, money will always make the world go round, but ultimately I think people are more aware of sort of what their well-being, what they want their well-being to be, and how they want their work-life balance to be. And I think very early on people are having lots of conversations, but certainly second what Kim's saying, I think people are very much more aware of what's going on, more happy to talk about it. And I think, I mean, it can only get better as well. And I think as people introduce more and more well-being, I think it will get much better in our industry.
Nikki, and you're nodding along as well. I guess we've experienced it ourselves, haven't we?
We have, and I think in line with Kim's point about mental health first aiders, we launched a mental health buddy scheme because we're quite aware that not everybody wants to come to us as a team or to their manager to maybe have those quite difficult conversations. I think people get very proud and very private, quite rightly, if that's what suits them. So we have a team of mental health buddies, and they put on our intranet their own story, why it's important to them, what experiences they've had, and it's all very confidential. So the only feedback we get is how many conversations have been had, not who's had those conversations. And since it's launched, it's been such a positive initiative that people have really benefited from that. And even things like Men's Mental Health Awareness Week, signposting for different sources that people can use, because it's obviously seen as a very taboo subject, and that isn't what we want. And in terms of our L&D and awareness, our L&D officer did a stress awareness session last week, face-to-face and virtual, and we have lots of signposting on our intranet and our learning management system, so people can self-serve but also have that support if they need more dedicated support. So I think it's been really positive, and it's always good to open up that conversation, particularly when it impacts people so significantly.
So all really valid points, and certainly it's clear that well-being is a key area when you're recruiting. But what else are you being challenged on maybe now that you weren't pre-pandemic or pre changes to our working environment? So what are the most commonly asked questions when you're recruiting in terms of the benefits and the support that you give to the staff? And I'll start that question with you, Sarah, if that's okay.
Yeah, no, that's fine. We've actually kind of looked at all of our parental policies as well, because that was coming up at interview time. Not so much kind of like sick leave or anything like that, but it was more the parental policies. So we've overhauled those, which are now more in line, and I think a lot more advantageous. But just going back to the last question, sorry, I forgot to say, and I wanted to share this with everybody, but we actually launched an initiative called Random Acts of Kindness. So every quarter, colleagues across all of our 800 members of staff could nominate somebody for doing a random act of kindness. And again, that just kind of added to the well-being factor of, there were like kind of 4 people nominate. So, well, it's probably more than that, about 16 people nominated every quarter, and 4 would be chosen for an award, a voucher of some sort. But again, it just kind of spread good vibes.
So yeah. What were some of the examples of the random acts of kindness that were taking place?
Oh, there was one where unfortunately somebody died within our business, and they left behind a family who didn't really have a lot of money, but a member of our staff did a collection, can you believe, at the centre, and contributed quite a lot of money to that individual's family. So that was a random act of kindness that kind of went, over the top really, but was brilliant and really well received.
Yeah.
So that went really down. That went down really well. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that one. So yeah, thank you for that.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So what about yourself, Anita, in terms of when you're being challenged on the kind of the benefits outside of the well-being? What kind of questions are you being asked now in terms of recruitment?
I think the benefits, we've all got those standard benefits, but I think sort of holidays very much coming into it, and sort of expectation of sort of a bit more holiday, and I think it and things like that will become more and more. I think parental leave and the opportunity to sort of have that flexible working will certainly come through, and I think that's what's coming through in a lot of the questions from individuals. It is about sort of time off and well-being to a certain extent. All the stuff that contributes to sort of that individual's well-being is sort of what's being raised with us.
Yeah. Nikki, have you found that we've kind of reworded or rephrased any of our recruitment on the back of the changing world that we're now working in?
Only around the hybrid working. In terms of we've always had quite a comprehensive benefits package, financial and non-financial split. So we don't really get much challenge around the reward aspects of our recruitment process. I think our Glassdoor profile helps significantly. When I started, we didn't particularly do a lot of work around employer brand. So the Glassdoor profiles really help individuals when they come for interview to know what our people say about us, rather than our website, which is what we want people to know about us. So people comment on reward on there. So I think because we're quite transparent about the overall reward package in our adverts, we always have been. But it's more about what CBS is like as a place to be. and focusing on our enjoyment. We're about to launch our employee value propositions. That's going to go on all of our adverts. Candidates are going to get that when they come for interview. So it might then raise some questions or, you know, some more information that people want around that. But that covers the whole spectrum of what it's like to work for us.
Thank you. So brings us on to the final section of the debate today, which is the top questions that we think HR professionals and decision makers are going to face into the rest of 2022 and beyond. And one of the questions that's actually been posted on the panel as well is, how are your businesses going to go about ensuring that employees remain loyal? We know that we're in a state of inflation that we can't see an end to at the moment. Cost of living is increasing all the time. We've got demands coming in from employees about flexible working and maybe compressed hours and condensed hours. So Anita, I'll start with you. How's your business going to make sure that your employees remain loyal as we move through this next phase of what the world's throwing at us?
We're certainly sitting down and talking about the types of things we need to retain our talent and bring people into the business. So I think the fact that we're talking about it is a really good start. I think being in the situation that we're going to go out and talk to people and see what type of things they want. And it is about understanding what our people want in order to keep them loyal to us. But I think the fact that we're all talking about it is a really good start to trying to understand how to retain people.
Thank you. Sarah, is that the same for yourselves?
Yes, very similar. We've literally just devised a onboarding committee. It sounds kind of like, ooh, but I think what we're going to be doing, we're going to extend that committee to maybe members of staff as well, existing members of staff who really enjoy working for the company, to see if they've got any ideas that they can share with us. So it's all about, as you mentioned, talking to staff and communicating, but it's getting those ideas not just from managers, but from staff themselves, similar to Glassdoor and things like that, where you kind of want to know why people enjoy working for the business. So we've just started that, actually. That's a very recent project that we're doing. It's called an onboarding project, so we can obviously share the ideas, and also the website, as much as the website, that's our showroom for recruitment and HR. So we are currently overhauling the websites. We've actually partnered up with a new company where the process for applying for jobs in the first instance is a lot slicker. It's not going to be a lengthy process. It's going to be a relevant process. So a couple of big things on the go at the moment.
That's interesting. Have you done that because of this war for talent? Because
Yes.
People are getting snapped up, so you need to move more quickly perhaps than you used to? Yeah,
absolutely. Spot on. Yeah, we've had to be very reactive in that regard. And again, this is probably going back to things that we wanted to do before the pandemic. Now we're getting to that point, what we've got to do it. There's no choice. You have to move with the times and keep up with the competitors, and it's the only way of doing it, by just bringing all staff in and talking and going for it, really.
Yeah, excellent. Kim, is that the same for you? Are you using tools to identify new talent? That's one of the questions that's just been posted, which I think is a really good question.
In terms of tools to identify talent, yeah, we've we had an appraisal system pre-pandemic. We've moved away from that, and we're doing regular check-ins with staff now. But going back to the piece about new starters and onboarding, we've actually just appointed an onboarding coordinator. So what they do is they take the new start from the offer stage straight through the first 90 days and have regular check-ins with these individuals. So even before the employee starts in the organisation, there'll be 4 touch points. So and we're actually going to send them some nice gifts that tie in with our values. During that 4-week, we found that there was quite a lot of drop off during notice periods. So from that perspective, we want to keep the engagement going during the notice period before the new employee joins us. And we've done something similar to yourself round about, trying to make sure that people have choice and options. And then when they come into the business, then there'll be regular check-ins and formal reviews with those individuals in their first 90 days. So they're going to have key milestones, etc. And then we're going to celebrate success, which is one of our values, when they get to the end of the probationary period, and have a end of probation celebration, etc. So there's lots that we're doing on trying to make sure we get the right talent in to start off with, you know, and then when we have them in the organisation, make sure that we've got a firm grip of them so that they don't want to go work anywhere else.
That sounds great, Kim. So can I ask, out of curiosity, this onboarding officer, was that somebody who was already on your payroll pre-pandemic?
No, it's a brand new role that we've introduced.
So they're doing that just to basically bring you, I take it they've spoken to people that you've brought into the business recently to assess and evaluate their experience.
Absolutely. So we want to make sure when somebody arrives, they've got a buddy, you know, they're set up with all their logins, their computers, they have a training plan, that they're meeting the key milestones of their role, etc. during the first 90 days. If they have any challenges during the probationary period, that they have someone that they've built a relationship. If they don't feel they can discuss it with their manager, that they can then discuss it with the onboarding coordinator, etc. So there's 4 or 5 key points that the onboarding coordinator will check in with the individual, and also check in collectively with the line manager as well. So we're hoping that is going to drive down our attrition rates in the first 6 months.
Sounds like a really positive programme you've done there. Is that something you'd think of doing, or you've done, Anita, at RRG?
No, I was going to say it sounds excellent. It sounds like a really good idea, because I think sort of the first 6 months is the time when we need to get people through the door and sort of build that loyalty base. So I think it's a brilliant idea, but we don't do anything that's like that. But I'm interested in sort of how it works and how it does reduce your rates.
Yeah.
Well, 6 months time, I'll hopefully be able to, you know, stand up and have some positive news or whatever. But yeah, I'm hopeful that that's absolutely going to have a significant impact on the attrition rates in the first 6 months.
It does sound really positive. Kim, how have you appointed the buddies? Is that, obviously they're already on the payroll today, so how have you selected those people?
Do you know what, we used to just do the normal, you know, best technician, you know, best sales executive, you know, well, they'll be the best buddy, and that necessarily isn't the case, to be honest. So what we've asked now for is volunteers for buddies, because we find that they make a better buddy ultimately. And also what we're in the throes of actually looking at providing buddy training, because as a buddy, you know, you wear a number of hats. You know, you're the mum sometimes, you know, you're the arm around the shoulder, sometimes you're the person that has to say, no, you need to step up to the plate, etc. So to explain, I think what we've been poor at is we've been saying to somebody, you're the buddy or you're the mentor, but we haven't actually told them what we expect from them in that role, etc. So as a wider business, we're looking at possibly introducing buddying and mentoring training for these individuals as well.
That sounds really positive. And I know, Nikki, for ourselves at CBS, we do the big welcome, but we're also having a look at an overhaul of that as well, aren't we, in terms of onboarding as well for recruitment?
Yeah, we have our L&D officer did a survey with people that had been onboarded over the last 9 to 12 months, got some feedback, and we're also implementing the buddy scheme and also the pre-joining us communication and the welcome card, involving them in different aspects of the business, inviting them to any events that we've got that are happening before they join. So I think the feedback so far has been really positive, but I'm really keen to see how the new big welcome, if you like, how that generates more loyalty as the time progresses. But I think for us, in terms of loyalty, and it's quite apt, we've got our 20th birthday celebrations tomorrow, and we've got some really long serving people in our business that have been with us since near the beginning, and it's really positive to see how they've evolved during their time as well. So for me, generating that loyalty is about listening, about being a supportive environment, providing opportunities to progress, not necessarily up the ranks, but across the business if they don't necessarily want a management job. And also we've been doing a lot of work on diversity and inclusion, and making sure that we're aware of all the different issues that impact our team. So there's lots of good work going on, but ultimately it is about communicating and listening and supporting for me.
I think it's interesting that we're focusing very much on the kind of pre-recruitment stage of bringing on board new starters as being almost a hotspot for people to have their heads turned and look elsewhere. So I guess to close the session, one of the questions I wanted to ask the panel was, and again, it's been posted, is how do you find competitively, the packages that you're offering to recruits and to existing members of staff, how does it compare to other businesses out there, and what are you having to do to make sure that you are in that kind of talent pool where you're attracting the right kind of people? I'll start that with you, Sarah, if that's okay.
Yes, we've actually done a lot of research around this area. It started off in January of this year and we finally concluded in April, but then we picked it back up again for some other productive roles in June of this year, well, just recently. But no, again, you've got to stay ahead in terms of remuneration, because somebody mentioned it earlier, I think it was Anita, people come to work for money, don't they? So you've got to make sure they're being paid fairly for the work that they do, and also kind of in line with other roles within other industries as well, not just the motor industry, because a service advisor could quite easily go and work somewhere else in a customer facing environment. So to make sure that all the roles are kind of connected from a pay perspective. So we've done a lot of work with that and it's gone down really well. It's sent some very good messages around the group. Really pleased.
Good. That's good. And Anita, have you done the same exercise? Have you kind of reviewed benchmarking or anything like that?
We're just in the process of doing some benchmarking now to see how our benefits stack up. So we're sort of in the middle of the benchmarking exercise at the moment. So it's quite interesting sort of what different competitors offer to put it on the table, but we're just in the middle of the benchmarking process now.
Yeah. And Kim, is that the same? I mean, is it more competitive?
We've already done the benchmarking exercise. So from that perspective, we always keep a tight line of sight to what our competitors are doing. And I think the majority of the automotive sector have certainly done something similar or whatever, because I've seen a huge flurry since the beginning of the year of our competitors advertising increased holidays, more weekends off, better salaries, better shift patterns or whatever. But I think we just need to remember that we need to make sure that we don't take knee-jerk reactions to all of these. I got an email the other day to say, oh, one of our competitors is now offering 2 days more holiday than we are or whatever. But I think it's looking at the whole package holistically. We're actually looking at total reward statements just now, making sure that our staff actually understand what the total remuneration package is worth to them, etc. I don't know if anybody's implemented that in any other of the businesses just now, but that's certainly on our agenda for later on in the year, is to look at total rewards packages that sit on our intranet so staff know exactly very, very visually and clear what the total remuneration package looks like. It's not just about the basic salary.
Nikki, I can see you're itching to say something there.
I know we've done total reward statements for a couple of years now, and I do think they're a really helpful tool. One thing that we're also looking at are flexible benefits. Can people maybe offset some of their pot, if you like, and buy extra holidays? Or we've been looking at that for a while. Some of the platforms, we're just not the right size for those platforms, but that's on our agenda for this year, so that the reward package, it suits individuals' needs. Some people sell some of their holidays at the end of the year. Some people buy them. So it's individual as to what they want. But you're right, Kim, it's about the holistic approach. And we've benchmarked twice this year because obviously salaries went up so significantly, particularly in some fields like the tech roles. And, a lot of companies are knee jerking and, hiking up their salaries to attract people. But then how sustainable is that? And money will motivate for a certain period of time. But actually, if you've not got the supportive environment, if you've not got the L&D, if you've not got the opportunity to progress, is that sustainable as an individual and as a business? So what we try and do is take a realistic, fair and comprehensive overview for the total rewards that we offer, and the twice annually, which is no mean feat in terms of the number of roles we have in the business. Some of them are very bespoke roles to us. Benchmarking that twice a year has been really important to us to make sure that our salaries remain really competitive.
Thanks, Nikki. Now, I'm conscious of time. We've managed to use up 50 minutes of the hour allocated. So before we close off, we've addressed all the questions as we've gone through, but I'd like to thank Anita Holden from Rybrook Group, Sarah Cooney from RRG, and Kim Gilfillan from East and Western, and of course our lovely Nikki from Car Benefit Solutions. Thank you everyone for attending this webinar. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you found some interesting facts about how to attract and retain top talent in 2022. And we will be posting this webinar and invite any questions from any of the attendees or panelists once we've closed this event. Thank you very much and hope to see you all again soon.
Thank you, everyone.